òtítọ́ ti sọnù lórílẹ̀‐èdè Nàìjíríà kí wọ́n tó bí wa. Ìyẹn lẹ ṣe rí pé ó ṣòro láti wárí ní ìgbà tiwa. Bí a bá wá discover wípé ó sọnù, a ń láti wá ní. Gbogbo àwọn ojúgbé mi, that is my age mate, tí a bá rí pé òtítọ́ sọnù tá a lè wá rí, ó tún dìgbà míì. Ó dìgbà míì. I was born in the same year pẹ̀lú Ọmọyẹlé Sowore. Ó discover pé òtítọ́ sọnù. Ó discover pé àìṣòdodo gbilẹ̀ kan lórí ilẹ̀ Nàìjíríà. Àwọn kan ti fẹ́ jà sẹ́yìn bí irú àwọn Bọ́lá Ìgè of blessed memory, Gani Fáwẹ́hìnmí Barrister SAN of blessed memory. Wọ́n ti fẹ́ ṣe é nígbà yẹn, ṣùgbọ́n àwọn alágbára tí orí kó wa pọ̀ pẹ̀lú wọn, àwọn aláìṣòótọ́, aláìṣòdodo tí orí kó wa pọ̀ pẹ̀lú wọn, wọ́n kó bọ̀, wọ́n kó ọkọ̀, wọ́n gbé ogun dìde sí Gani Fáwẹ́hìnmí. Nínú rẹ̀ ni ẹ̀mí wọn bọ́ sí, àti Bọ́lá Ìgè. Bẹ̀rẹ̀ látòrí bàbá Awólọ́wọ̀, bá ti rí àwọn àìṣedédé díẹ̀ lọ́wọ́ wọn. Àwọn lérò nígbà yẹn ni wípé if you are in Rome, you do as the Romans. Tó o bá fẹ́ mú ọ̀bọ wá ṣe bí ọ̀bọ, ṣùgbọ́n ó bù wọ́n lọ́wọ́. Yorùbá pòwe pé pátápátá là ń fọ́jú, bínabíná là ń ṣe kinní kan. Ojú àfọ́ ẹ̀fọ́ tán, ìjà ló máa ń dálẹ̀. Mi ò expect kí irú èyí tí ṣe President Bọ́lá Ahmed Tinubu kí ó dé orí oyè presidency, orí àga presidency, bó tiẹ̀ jẹ́ tipátipá ló fi débẹ̀, kó wá ṣe kíni, kó sọjú nù wípé òun ò rí pé àwọn Fúlàní were at war to conquer this land. Kó sọjú nù wípé òun ò rí pé òtítọ́ sọnù lórílẹ̀‐èdè Nàìjíríà. Ó possible kó má lè rí, torí wípé kò sí nínú wọn ní age bracket wọn ní Nàìjíríà tí kò tọwọ́ bọ́ sọ̀lọ̀, tí kò jẹ́ nídìí màdàrú. Pẹ̀lú nǹkan tí Abacha fi ojú alàgbà Bọ́lá Tinubu rí ní orílẹ̀-èdè Nàìjíríà, kò yẹ kó jóun ló máa sọ wípé there is no genocide against the Christians. Ó mà dùn mí o. Ó mà dùn mí o. Tó bá ti fún ẹ̀yin kan lówó, arákàdéèdè bàbá rere bàbá kẹ̀ lẹ́ẹ̀ma máa ké. Ẹ rò pé ibẹ̀ lòpin ayé mọ́, ẹ rò pé ibẹ̀ láyé tán sí. Ẹ mọ̀ pé àwọn kan ń bọ̀ nínú generation tó ń bọ̀ tó máa túdì yín síta. Èmi nínú yín wọ́n máa ní kó lọ wú òkú ẹ̀, kó ṣe kí ni, kó yìn bọ̀m̀bù. Èmi wọ́n á lọ sórí olórí ẹ̀, wọ́n á gbé bọ́ǹbù kalẹ̀ níbẹ̀, wọ́n á yìn gbà ó, á tú lẹ́bẹ̀ gbúgbúgbúgbúgbú. That is to say, àkútú ikú yín lọ́nà ọ̀run. Àwọn nǹkan tẹ́ lérò pé ẹ kó jọ, àwọn ọmọ máa jogún ẹ̀, ìran yín ò tún lè tòṣì mọ́. Solomoni wípé nínú gbogbo làálàá mi, nínú ohun tí mo kó jọ nínú ayé, èmi kò mọ̀ bóyá ọlọ́gbọ́n ọmọ tàbí aṣiwèrè ọmọ ni yóò jogún ẹ̀. Ó jẹ́ ohun tó kọ mí lóminú pé òtítọ́ sọnù kò sí sẹ́nikẹ́ni tó fẹ́ wá rí yàtọ̀ sáwọn fíù tọ́lọ́run kà mí wọ́n kan nínú wọn and you are trying to clamp down on them torí pé ẹ lórúkọ ẹ ní ipò ẹ ní owó ẹ rántí pé Ọlọ́run ju ipò orúkọ owó lọ. Ó dùn mí a bí mi sí Nàìjíríà bàbá àti ìyá mi bí mi sí Nàìjíríà èmi náà tó ti bí wọn sí Nàìjíríà ó mà dùn mí o ìlú tí kò sí òdodo tí kò sí òtítọ́ tó jẹ́ pé gbogbo ẹ̀ lórí irọ́ tí Tinubu bá ti ṣe kó ṣe kó dára nígbà yẹn bó ṣe wọlé gbàrà tó ṣe iye pé kò yọ owó subsidy kúrò kó yẹ lẹ́sẹ̀kẹsẹ̀ láti ṣe kíni láti reinstate òtítọ́ bàtò òtítọ́ ti jìnnà sí wọn náà torí gbogbo nǹkan ló yé wa mo rántí gbà táwa ní University of Lagos àwọn kan fẹ́ ṣe convocation mo jókòó síta ní ẹ̀gbẹ́ senate ń bẹ̀ yẹn auditorium tó wà lẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́ senate yẹn láti fẹ́ ṣe so alàgbà Tinubu ń bọ̀ mo kàn gbọ́ táwọn student kan Chicago wọ́n tẹ̀lé mọ́tò yẹn bọ̀ nígbà tó máa dé sáàdì ibẹ̀ yẹn àwọn student pọ̀ sùà alàgbà Tinubu dẹ̀ gbé owó through the open roof wọ́n ju owó yẹn sí direction kan a bundle of àpò owó kan báyìí tó ń dì lẹ́nu wọ́n ju sí direction kan gbogbo àwọn student lọ sábàbẹ́ lọ wọ́n lọ gbé owó yẹn orí gbígbà lọ ó kó sínú kínní auditorium yẹn kóró nígbà tó address àwọn student tó nǹkan tó fẹ́ ṣe tó tún gbọ́ síbẹ̀ àwọn student tó ti dúró Chicago ibi tó ti ké Chicago ó tún ti gbówó mi again wọ́n tó jù sí another direction wọ́n gbà bí lọ wọ́n wá wọ́n mọ́ ni this is what àìṣòdodo of the highest order. Bíbélì wípé bí wọ́n bá ṣe rere ara kì yóò háyà ọ bí. They could lynch him on that day if he doesn't do it that way. These are tax payers' money. Àìṣòdodo, àìṣòótọ́. Can such happen in America? Tí wọ́n travel lọ tó ń bọ̀. Can such happen in London? Tí wọ́n travel lọ tó ń bọ̀. In California, in Australia, in Germany. Can it happen? Kí ló dé tí òótọ́ ò ṣe é sọ ní Nàìjíríà? Tó jẹ́ olóòótọ́ ìlú lè máa clamp down on. Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ nǹkan létí gbọ́ lójú rí tẹnu sì ti sọ. Síbẹ̀ náà ẹ wá ń purọ́ ẹ̀yin àṣejọba ń purọ́ pé kò sí genocide against the Christian in Nigeria. Tí ẹ fi ojú rí nǹkan tó ṣẹlẹ̀ ní Benue, tí ẹ fojú rí nǹkan tó ṣẹlẹ̀ ní Plateau, Pastor Ezekiel Adakomo kò tí ì bọ́ lẹ́nu ẹ̀. Wọ́n ṣì ń lépa ẹ̀mí wọn títí dọ̀la, kò sí òdodo mọ́, kò sí ètí ṣe òtítọ́ mọ́. Bàbá Pastor Adébóyè dẹ̀ pẹnu dákẹ́, wọn ò sọ̀rọ̀. Wọn ò bá ìjọba wí lórí ẹ̀. Pastor Oyedepo, Winners Chapel, wọn ò sọ anything lórí ọ̀rọ̀ yìí, wọ́n pa Deborah. 2009 Shetima Buhari El-Rufai ní Kaduna wọ́n kó Boko Haram wọlé for political thuggery láti combat against Jonathan àti ìjọba ẹ̀. Nísìnyí wọ́n wá kọ̀ láti yield to the demands of the banditries, the Boko Harams. Wọ́n wá ń dẹ́gun ja ìlú. Ìjọba ò sì rí kankan ṣe sí. Bí ìjọba bá ti fẹ́ ṣe ohunkóhun, Jonathan fẹ́ ṣe nǹkan kan gbà yẹn, ó lọ kó wọ Obama nídìí. Obama ṣe kí ni? Ó dance to the tune of the APC. Wọ́n jẹ́ kí Washington kó ṣe kí ni? Kó ta war weapons fún Nàìjíríà. Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ Trump. Gbogbo yín ò sì tí mọ̀ pé áńgẹ́lì ni Trump. Ó máa tó yé yín. Ṣebí ogun mi ló tún fẹ́ bẹ́lẹ̀ yìí. Nínú ìṣípayá mi lóru, ominú kọ mí. Mo rí wípé àwọn tá à ń sọ pa ẹ̀ yìí, wọ́n fọwọ́lú ibi tó ń tí ì dé tẹ́lẹ̀, wọ́n débẹ̀ wọ́n kọjá bẹ̀. Ṣé Kwara nìkan lẹ ṣe pariwo? Mo rí pé wọ́n wọnú kíni, wọ́n wọnú ilẹ̀ Yorùbá wá. Àánú mà ṣe mí o. Ẹni kò sí genocide against Christian, then it will be against you people. Tó bá yá. Ẹ tẹ́ mi kò máa sọ fẹ́ yọ ọmọ Yorùbá pátápátá bí mo ṣe ń pariwo ní gbogbo wa pé ó ń bọ̀. Àwọn la máa ń dẹ́dẹ́ ìbá dára kẹ̀ ṣe gírí. Torí ohun tọ́lọ́run fi hàn mí yìí kì í ṣe nǹkan kékeré. Mo ti ń pariwo ẹ̀ ó ti pẹ́. Mo ti ń bá yín sọ ó ti pẹ́. Kì í ṣe ní kò ṣàlà pé kẹ́ múra sílẹ̀. Ṣùgbọ́n òtítọ́ ti sọnù o. Ìjọba tó wà lọ́wọ́lọ́wọ́ yìí kò sí òtítọ́ nínú wọn o. Kò sí òdodo nínú wọn o. Wọ́n ṣe báwọn ti ṣáájú ti ṣe ni o. Tọ́ dẹ̀ máa jẹun sókè o. Ìwọ tó ti rí jájẹ́ ń bẹ̀. Òkúṣẹ́ oríire ló máa pè é, ṣùgbọ́n orí burúkú gbà ní nítorí wípé alálẹ̀ máa bẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ́wọ́ rẹ̀. Ìwọ torí òdodo tó wò sí òdodo tó wò sì sọ òdodo, ọ̀run náà máa bẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ́wọ́ rẹ̀. Bó tẹ̀ jẹ́ pé ní kò mẹ̀yìn, ṣùgbọ́n àwọn tẹ́ bí sílẹ̀ tẹ́lẹ̀ rò pé ẹ̀ ń kó ọ̀rọ̀ ìjọ sílẹ̀ fún. Bí àparò ṣe ń ṣe àbá lórí ẹyin tí kò yé, the Bible says, ni ọlọ́rọ̀ tó kọ ọ̀rọ̀ jọ láì kò mọ ẹni tí ó ṣe kíni tí ó jogún rẹ̀. No wonder Solomon lè wí pé gbogbo ọ̀rọ̀ tó yẹ kí ní iṣẹ́ tó yẹ kí n ṣe nínú gbogbo làálàá mi ni mo ṣe. Gbogbo àwọn ọ̀rọ̀ wọ̀nyí èmi ò wá mọ̀ bóyá kí ni o ọlọ́gbọ́n ọmọ ni ó jogún rẹ̀ tàbí àṣìwèrè ọmọ. The generation that is coming will ask you. Ohun tó yẹ kí ẹ ṣe tẹ́ kó ṣe yìí, ẹ tọ́jú rẹ̀ sílẹ̀ di generation tó ń bọ̀ ni. And your generation will do what? They will curse you. Èmi àní kan lọ gbébọn, wọ́n yìnbọn sí èdè ṣíkínni. Ìrún pósí yín. Èmi náà ká kọ́ gbé bọ́ọ̀bù lọ síbi tó sí yín sí, kó detonate ẹ̀. Nígbà tó bá yá, ẹ san sí ìyẹn 20 ọdún. Ó ń jóni lọ́wọ́ fẹ́lifẹ́li. Ó sì dá mi lójú pé ẹlẹ́ṣẹ̀ kan kò ní ṣe kí ni, kò ní lọ láláì jìyà. Ẹ múra sí i. Ọmọyẹlé Sowore dìde. You want to clamp down on him. Ẹ lo ọlọ́pàá, ẹ lo tọ̀hún, ẹ lo tibí. Ẹ ń bọ́ sí pàbó òfó lẹ́ máa mú lẹ́yìn ẹ̀. Torí pé kí ni? Òdodo màláìkà kan ni Ọmọyẹlé Sowore. Ẹgbẹ́ Nnamdi Kanu ẹgbẹ́ sẹ́wọ̀n gba ọwọ́ Buhari. Ó sì ti yẹ kí rẹ̀jíìmù yìí ṣe kí ni kó ti rìlíìsì alàgbáyé. Màláìkà kan nínú ìtí ṣe kí ni tó yẹ kó gbé ìjà yín jà lọ́jọ́ iwájú. Òun lẹ́yìn kásírèètì yẹn. Ẹni Ibo ò dá mo wo fara kan lẹ́nu ọjọ́ méjì sí. Tọ́ni Ibo ṣe kíní kan, Ibo ṣe léyìí, Ibo ṣe tọ̀hún yẹn. You are castigating the Igbos. They release wọn kọ́ lọ. Ẹni wọ́n Nàìjíríà. Nnedi Nwoko ń ṣe tiẹ̀ lọ́wọ́lọ́wọ́. Senator Nnedi Nwoko ìyẹn náà ń ṣe tiẹ̀ lọ. Wọ́n fi àìṣòdodo, wọ́n fi ṣe ọbẹ̀, wọ́n fi ń jẹ iyán. ẹ gba èrè ẹ̀. Àwọn ọmọ ológo yín tó yẹ kẹ́ ṣe kí ni tẹ́ embrace gbogbo wọn lẹ́ ń padànù. Àtúbọ̀tán yẹn máa wáyé, ó ń bọ̀, ẹ lè escape ẹ̀. Bẹ́ẹ̀ bá escape ẹ̀, àwọn ọmọ yìí ò ní escape ẹ̀. Kẹ́ ẹ mọ̀ pé ohun kò tẹ́ bá ṣe sílẹ̀ lónìí la máa forúkọ ẹ̀ pé àwọn ọmọ yín lọ́la. Ẹ wo Abacha nísìnyí, tí n bá dá iléeṣẹ́ kan sílẹ̀ ní tó bá ní ọmọ Abacha kan bọ̀ wá ṣiṣẹ́ bẹ́ẹ̀, mo máa ṣe kí ni máa prevent ẹ̀, because ohun tí bàbá ẹ̀ ti ṣe sílẹ̀. Bọ̀dé George pariwo lẹ́nu ọjọ́ mẹ́ta yìí pé nítorí orúkọ wọn ò fẹ́ fún àwọn ọmọ oníṣẹ́ in any governmental ministry or anywhere. Ó ti gbàgbé pé J5 ló ń fi kó owó Ondo State nígbà tó jẹ́ gómìnà níbẹ̀, tó fi kó jáde lọ. Wọ́n wà kan lọ sí Kotonu títí dọ̀là wọn rí gbà. Owó yẹn ò tó dá lé iṣẹ́ sílẹ̀ tó ọmọ ti lè ṣiṣẹ́ kí others can benefit from. One good turn deserves another. One good turn deserves another. Kò sóhun tẹ́ ẹ ṣe tẹ́ ẹ ní gbèrè ẹ̀. Àwọn kan wà tó jẹ́ wípé lójú ẹ̀mí wọn ní gbogbo ohun tó kójọ tó máa bàjẹ́ lójú wọn. Tí ẹ bá wọ inú ilé tí ṣe kíni Babangida ń sìn, ẹ ṣe bá àwọn owó ọ̀rọ̀gbọ̀rọ̀gbọ̀ owó níbẹ̀, láwọn owó tó ti jí nínú ìjọba àti bẹ́ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ. Ó wà lórí wheelchair ẹ̀ sìn, ó ń jẹ gbádùn ẹ̀ lórí wheelchair. Mò ń bọ̀ Ọlọ́run kẹrẹ́ kò ṣe kíni kò yá lógún ọdún. Ẹ múra sí, mò ń bọ̀, mi ti dé. Kí ni reason tí òtítọ́ ṣe fi sọ ní Nàìjíríà? Kí ni ìdí pàtàkì tí òtítọ́ kò ṣeé sọ ní Nàìjíríà? Oh God, why tẹ́ fi dá mi sílùú Nàìjíríà Ọlọ́run?
EP, led by Eben Barlow, a team of certain narrative is currently being pushed to sabotage the effort President Donald Trump is making to stop the genocide happening in Nigeria. But the problem is, they're not telling you the whole truth. Recently, a popular Nigerian pastor, Femi Lazarus, claimed in a viral video that the United States once refused to sell arms to Nigeria under President Goodluck Jonathan. What he failed to tell his followers is when and under whom that actually happened. The US arms blockade against Nigeria wasn't under Trump. It was under Barack Obama, the same administration that quietly supported the opposition party, APC, in its quest to unseat Jonathan's government in 2015. Let's start from there. By 2014, Nigeria was in the heat of war against Boko Haram. Churches were burning, schools were attacked, entire communities were being displaced in the Northeast. President Jonathan's administration reached out to the US for advanced weapon systems, drones, and surveillance aircraft. But Washington said no. They cited human rights concerns under the Leahy Law, which bans arms sales to foreign forces accused of abuses. But that wasn't the full story. Behind closed doors, some of Nigeria's most powerful opposition figures were lobbying Washington to isolate Jonathan's government. Among them was Bola Ahmed Tinubu, then a key APC leader and now Nigeria's current president, along with several northern governors who traveled to the United States. They met with policymakers, think tanks, and advocacy groups, presenting a narrative that Jonathan's administration was corrupt, anti-Muslim, and unfit to lead. They urged the US to withhold arms sales, claiming any weapons sent to Jonathan would be used to suppress the opposition. That lobbying worked. the Obama administration, already skeptical of Jonathan's growing independence from Western influence, quietly placed Nigeria on an informal blacklist. US and UK defense contractors were instructed to delay or deny sales. Even Israel backed off ongoing deals. What began as a security partnership turned into a calculated squeeze, a political move designed to weaken Jonathan ahead of the 2015 elections. When the blockade became unbearable and Nigerian soldiers began dying for lack of ammunition, Jonathan turned elsewhere. He reached out to South African mercenaries, STTEP, led by Ibn Barlow, a team of battle-hardened veterans who had fought across Africa. Their mission was simple: reclaim territory from Boko Haram and train Nigeria's elite units. In just a few months, they achieved what years of conventional warfare had failed to deliver. Boko Haram began losing ground. Communities started returning home. The tide was finally turning. But that progress didn't last long, because as Jonathan's forces advanced, another battle was being fought behind the scenes. A political war waged from Washington, D.C. The U.S., under Obama, had quietly thrown its weight behind the All Progressives Congress, the APC, providing funding, campaign consulting, and even an American campaign manager who advised Buhari's team on strategy and messaging. It was no longer just Nigeria's election. It was an international project. Obama's administration, working through the Democratic Party's global networks, backed Buhari as the face of change and reform. APC became, in essence, a political creation of the Obama-era State Department, a party shaped, promoted, and supported by foreign interests determined to end Jonathan's rule. 12 northern governors were even invited to the U.S. under Obama's watch for a closed-door meeting. According to reports, they assured Washington of their commitment to removing Jonathan and promised that once Buhari was in power, relations would improve. Some of them even pleaded for continued arms restrictions so that the government's military efforts would collapse before the elections. And it worked exactly as planned. Jonathan lost the 2015 election. Buhari became president, and one of his very first acts was to terminate the contract with STTEP, the same mercenaries who were driving Boko Haram back. His government claimed Nigeria would handle its own security. Within months, Boko Haram regained lost territory. The group evolved, more sophisticated, more brutal, and more funded. Meanwhile, Obama's administration celebrated Buhari's victory as a win for democracy. But it was Nigerians who paid the price. Tens of thousands were killed in renewed attacks. Thousands of soldiers died. Millions were displaced again. What the US and APC called change became a decade of endless bloodshed. That's not partnership, that's complicity. For years, APC leaders actively lobbied for US intervention against Jonathan, even calling for his arrest abroad over alleged corruption and human rights abuses. They painted him as weak and incapable of stopping the killings, while secretly ensuring that he lacked the tools to fight back. And that's the true origin of Nigeria's endless war on terror, a war deliberately prolonged for politics. But when Donald Trump entered the White House in 2017, things began to change. He didn't follow Obama's playbook. Trump reviewed the arms restrictions and approved the sale of 12 A-29 Super Tucano aircraft, precision attack planes that Jonathan had once requested but was denied. It was Trump who finally reversed those years of diplomatic sabotage. After reviewing intelligence briefings, evidence from faith leaders, aid groups, and US intelligence, pointed to a pattern. Security failures were not merely incompetence. Powerful actors were looking away or enabling the violence. On that basis, Trump went further. He designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern under the International Religious Freedom Act, officially recognizing the persecution of Christians in Nigeria as a matter of global urgency and unlocking tools like targeted sanctions, export restrictions, and visa bans. But that changed again when Joe Biden took office. One of his earliest foreign policy decisions was to remove Nigeria from that same list, despite the fact that attacks on Christians had worsened and thousands of civilians were still being massacred across the Middle Belt and Kaduna. Under Biden, the U.S. returned to a familiar pattern: silence, diplomacy, and excuses. Now, as Trump re-enters the global stage and speaks out again against the killings in Nigeria, the same networks that once sabotaged Jonathan are at work trying to discredit him. They twist facts, omit timelines, and use selective memory to manipulate public opinion. They repeat that America once refused to sell arms to Nigeria, without ever mentioning that it was Obama, their political ally, who orchestrated it, not Trump. They conveniently leave out that the arms blockade was part of a coordinated campaign by APC politicians, foreign lobbyists, and global actors who wanted regime change. They forget that while Jonathan was begging for weapons to protect Nigerians, members of his own country's opposition were in Washington, petitioning the White House to deny him those weapons.
And when Trump finally broke that cycle and spoke against the genocide, the same people who benefited from Obama's policy began a new smear campaign, accusing him of interference, of racism, of using religion as a weapon. Some even said he wanted to turn Nigeria into Libya and steal our resources. But history doesn't lie. The Obama-Biden era's fingerprints are all over this history. They empowered a political structure that traded lives for power. They backed a regime that shut down mercenary success and replaced it with excuses. And now, as Trump returns to the global stage, determined to confront what others ignored, that same network is terrified. They know Trump's approach is different. He doesn't play diplomatic games. He calls things by their names. That's why every time he speaks, misinformation floods social media. Because if people remember what really happened, if they trace the timeline, the truth will expose too many lies. When APC leaders lobbied America to block weapons, they thought they were only hurting Jonathan, but they never knew it would come back to haunt them. Tens of thousands died because of those political calculations. The mercenaries who could have ended Boko Haram were expelled. The soldiers who could have fought harder were left underarmed, and the foreign allies who could have helped were misled by politicians chasing power. The tragedy is that the same playbook is being used again. Not against Jonathan this time, but against Trump, because Trump's intervention threatens to reopen wounds that many want buried. The Christian genocide in Nigeria is real. It's documented by global organizations, eyewitnesses, and even Nigeria's own former information minister, Lai Mohammed, who admitted in 2023 that Christians were being targeted. But instead of confronting the killers, the government targets those who speak out. They want to make you forget who called terrorists our brothers. They want to make you forget who removed Nigeria from the list of countries persecuting Christians. But the truth doesn't fade. Nigeria didn't fail because it lacked help. It failed because its leaders and their foreign partners didn't want the war to end. That's the truth behind the noise. And as more people begin to uncover it, no narrative, no influencer, and no government mouthpiece will be able to silence it again.
I guarantee you that these guys will be defeated and disgraced. It's just a matter of time. I've made myself available to answer to all their charges, but I also made myself available to throw my life on the line to ensure that my convictions are not tampered with, and that nobody in this country is subjected to this level of degradation that we have had to go through. The issues shouldn't have been me. The issue should have been how to secure the country, Nigeria, in a time of insecurity. It should have been about fighting hunger and starvation. It should have been about dignity of workers. There's a lot of problems, including some 200 people were killed in Benue a few weeks ago. The president traveled there. Those who were arrested have not even been brought before a vacation judge yet. But because I stood on the side of serving and retired policemen, led them in a protest, these charges were brought against me. But I can guarantee you that these guys will be defeated and disgraced. It's just a matter of time. I've made my... This so-called billionaire was just throwing people in prison. And when we got to prison, we found 9 people that had been put in prison by the same Neduwoko from his village. If you guys paid attention to it, there was a time Neduwoko also went and hijacked one lady's father. The lady was crying all over social media that Ned has ruined their... Ned has ruined a lot of lives using the police force. Anybody who is a public figure, who is in political office, our duty first and foremost is to hold them to account, no matter how powerful they are. We have found out also that he has done cross-border prostitution by bringing in underage girls from places like Morocco to Nigeria. These are international sex trafficking crimes. So his license is also our target, that he's not allowed to practice law both in Nigeria and the UK. You must understand that I'm not fighting for Regina Daniels. I'm fighting against abuse of office by a Nigerian senator who is colluding with the Nigeria police and who has had a history of using the police to oppress people. Regina Daniels' issue came to my attention when her husband arrested a TikToker named Timothy Gabriel. His TikTok name is Tuma, because they claim that Tuma accused Regina Daniels of having kids that do not belong to this particular senator. The senator procured the Nigerian police, particularly the FCT command, got Tuma arrested and sent him to prison. They eventually brought Tuma to court after we protested, and Tuma was granted bail but could not meet his bail condition for 4 months. When he came out, he had been battered so bad, he was forced to apologize to Regina Daniels' husband, Senator Ned Nwoko. His real name is Chinedu Nwoko, but he abbreviated it to Ned. So when again Senator Ned Nwoko got Regina Daniels' brother arrested, apparently for cybercrime and defamation of character as they claim, I was contacted, not by their family. And when I was contacted, most people said, well, you don't have to fight for this guy because they had been fighting against you. And I said, no, it doesn't matter. I know Ned Nwoko. Ned Nwoko was the person I fought some 5 years back when he was prosecuting falsely and oppressively a lady known as Jaruma who used to sell aphrodisiacs on Instagram. So I heard about Jaruma, never met Jaruma before, but I felt it strange that this so-called billionaire was just throwing people in prison. In 2021, I was also arrested. That time not by Ned Nwoko, but I was arrested by the Nigerian police, accused of doing a protest on New Year's Eve. And when we got to prison, we found 9 people that had been put in prison by the same Ned Nwoko from his village, because they said when young people were fighting against him for stealing their land to set up what is now known as his sports university. We fought and helped these guys to get out. Later on, if you guys paid attention to it, there was a time Ned Nwoko also went and hijacked one lady's father. The lady was crying all over social media that Ned has ruined it. Ned has ruined a lot of lives using the police force and using his power. And one thing people must know in Nigeria is that anybody who is a public figure, who is in political office, our duty first and foremost is to hold them to account, no matter how powerful they are. And when I heard that Ned had pounced on his in-laws, I immediately got involved in it. In fact, as at the time he arrested Regina's brother, I was declared wanted in Lagos for participating in the protest. So I had to run from Lagos to come to Abuja. And by the time I got to Abuja, we had already arranged a lawyer to fight for him. That is Samuel Ojogo, that's Regina's brother. And we were able to get him freed on Monday after spending about 3 nights in detention in an unjust and unlawful and illegal manner. So after freeing him, I discovered that Ned had other plans in place to arrest Regina's mom. He had intercepted Regina's phone calls and was going to use it against her. He was planning to reveal and release her private chats and private parts in the open. And as someone who is an advocate for respect for human rights and dignity, there's no way I can sit back, even when so many people will say, well, why would you care about a girl who was part of the oppressive system that you've been fighting against? Well, I don't care about Jews or Gentiles. I fight for human rights regardless of whether you support me or not. So your support or your love for me is not a condition for me to create a society that is just and fair. And I hate it. Everybody understands this. I hate it when people use their power, when they use illegally acquired wealth to punish people because they feel they can get away with it. So that was how we got into another issue. Found out that Ned married Regina Daniel underage. Now, you must understand that Nigeria is a signatory to a lot of international instruments that opposes sexual trafficking, all right, and messing with underage girls. You cannot marry an underage girl because there's a Child Rights Protection Act in this country that forbids, powerful people from using their position to marry, whether you are powerful or not. You don't have a right to marry somebody who has not reached the age of consent. Even when their parents say, come and take the person. We procure the passport, it's available, you can see it. Upon discovering that this might be a problem, because he's an international lawyer, he practices in the UK, where he's gotten involved in a lot of shady dealings, by the way. He went and helped her procure a voter's card. But her original international passport, which Ned has traveled extensively with Regina Daniel, shows that at the time they married, she was 17 years old. He knew it, but he knew that an alibi would be needed in the future, so he went and collected from her a voter's card. But even Regina Daniel's parents and handlers have told me that she never knew about that voter's card. So there's something still shady about it. But when it comes to public identity cards that are acceptable, the international passport is probably number one, because that one goes through a lot of scrutiny before you can get it. So to go and bring an INEC voter's card or driver's license to say anybody can procure that. I've seen people who cannot see who have driver's license in Nigeria. So it's nothing new, but it is impunity that we are against. It is a fraud, and I know that whenever these kind of things happen, people will say, you don't need to get him, it's wife and husband matter. Yes, it is wife and husband matter, but where there is no wife and there's no husband, then it becomes society's problem. And why I say there's no wife and there's no husband is that Ned also managed not to have formally married Regina because he knew that she was underage. That's why there's no court document that shows that they are married. If anyone exists, he probably also went and forged it. But on a larger corruption problem that is facing Nigeria, Ned is one of the most corrupt persons in this country. And I'm also an anti-corruption fighter. He's the one who, in conjunction with Malami and the rest of them, claim that they are refunding local government money to Nigeria. And Ned gets millions and millions of dollars
in what they claim is legal consultancy to the federal government to help retrieve money that already exists that belongs to local governments. And that's how he's able to get away with all these crimes. We have found out also that he has done cross-border prostitution by bringing in underage girls from places like Morocco to Nigeria. These are international sex trafficking crimes. And we are saying Ned, it should be suspended immediately from the Senate. He should be arrested by, I won't say the Nigeria police, it should be a crack team because the police is in his pocket. And his trial should commence. And also, we are going to start processing in the UK for Ned to be arrested and also extradited to the UK for crimes that he committed, including someone who is in the UK, who is a practicing lawyer in the UK, engaging in unethical practices. We are not allowed to do that. So his license is also our target, that he's not allowed to practice law both in Nigeria and the UK. I know that when you guys hear this, you may not understand. It's a fight that we must take to sanitize our country so that criminals like Ned will not be a senator in this country. And until Nigeria gets to that point, Nigeria is not going to get better. It doesn't matter how much they give you or they convince you that this is husband and wife matter. It doesn't matter how much you pay bloggers. We are always going to stand for what is just and what is right. And that's what got me arrested in 2021 because I was fighting for Jaruma, and he was involved in another fraud because he has an NGO that he claims is eradicating mosquitoes in Nigeria. And what I used in puncturing his lie was that I said to him, you want to eradicate mosquitoes in Nigeria, but there are mosquitoes in your compound in Abuja. And I found out while I was doing that case with him that he has the media in his pocket. There's a lot of these media guys who are working for him. And also, Ned has got huge amount of support from the Nigeria police. They go to his house to eat every day, policemen in Nigeria. Shame, shame on our Nigeria police for having sold the police force for free.
Over a decade, Nigerians have been told that their government is fighting terrorists. Billions of dollars have been spent. Thousands of soldiers have died. Millions have been displaced. Yet the killings never stop. But what if the real reason the war never ends